Goldfish, 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 goldfish. Oh. Drop the goldfish. Goldfish. I found this in the garage while I was cleaning up, and I'm just like, ooh, this is mine now. And a Brenda. She's a good girl. So, hopefully now I'm back on track with my Royals and Rulers videos for One Piece. So, back to the Ryugu Kingdom, or the Ryugu Royals. This video is going to be about Queen Otohime. She is of course, the late wife and queen, alongside King Neptune. She is the mother of Fukaboshi, Ryuboshi, Momboshi, and Shirahoshi. And she is this political activist figure that was in Fishman Island and was trying to work to create a union of peace between the fishmen, the merfolk, and humans. Because she dreamed of having her people emigrate from the seafloor to the surface. Unfortunately, that dream was cut short, but she never lost hope in it, and her children and her husband have continued to carry on her dream and continue to try to work to bring that dream to fruition, which is some of the stuff that I will talk about a little bit later on near the end of the video when I talk about kind of like her legacy. So there were a couple of things I wanted to point out. Otohime is a goldfish mermaid, and she's adorable. So, goldfish. She was 36 years old at the time of death, and so she would be 46 now. I think when I did the Neptune video, I think I said that he was like 70-something, so there's a little bit of an age gap there. But in regards to when it comes to like royalty and marrying and stuff like that, sometimes the king doesn't marry until he's fully seated on the throne, and then he'll choose a wife and whatever. You know, it just differs depending on stuff. And I did look up her voice actress just because sometimes I like to see if the voice actor has done anything else. And the thing that I found interesting is that the voice actor is Amanda Lee, or Amelie, is one of her stage names, and she is the same voice that voices the English dub version of Uta and sings all of Uta's songs and stuff. So I found that kind of interesting, that both of them are kind of, you know, very optimistic dreamers, as in, you know, Otohime dreams of, you know, having it be that, you know, the fishmen and the merfolk can live on land and live alongside humans equally and peacefully and everything. And Uta wants to try to create this world based off of Uta that's in, you know, film Red, the main part that we're associated with for Uta, that she wants to try to create this world where people don't have to suffer anymore. So I just kind of found that interesting that both of those characters have been voiced by the same person. Going into kind of the, you know, the history and the biography and stuff like that of Queen Otohime, we don't know that much about her. We really don't know anything about her birth. It is possible that she was born to, I guess, like a high-ranking family within the Ryugu Kingdom, but beyond the royal family, we really don't hear about any other, like, high-ranking noble families. I mean, with Wano, we got all of, like, you know, there was the Shogun family that was, you know, the Kozuki family, and then there were all of the different daimyo families and stuff like that, and then, like, the Yakuza families, but, you know, with the Ryugu Kingdom, we really don't get that much beyond, oh, there's the king and queen and their children, and then there's, like, the minister of the right and the minister of the left. But there's not really too much else beyond that we get to see in regards to how their, you know, politics works and stuff like that. But given the fact that as much as Otohime wants to try to get the people of the island to participate in trying to help get them to the surface, I would assume it is also some form of, like, a democracy as well. Like, the ministers might be elected officials, and then, you know, the king and the queen and stuff like that are, you know, within those positions, you know, through, you know, birth and marriage and stuff like that, and the princes and the princess and everything are within those positions, and then, like, the ministers are elected, and then, like, the people of Fishman Island, because if Queen Otohime really wanted to, she could have, to demonstrate like the type of power Neptune didn't show us at all, was she could have literally just gone to Neptune and said, hey, no, I want to move Fishman Island up to the surface. And, if he had that power to just politically do that, he would have, but that doesn't appear to be the case. So there wasn't really anything there. So I don't think Otohime came from any, like, high-ranking family or anything like that. The most that we get is that during the Odin flashback, during the Roger part of the Odin flashback, when they're in Fishman Island, it is mentioned that Otohime is just this civilian mermaid who caused a great political protest in her younger days. And that, it's, when Charlie is giving her prophecy about, the king will marry and he will have a daughter in blah, blah, blah many years, and she will be this, Poseidon reincarnated and everything like that. And the king's like, I'm not even married yet. And I don't know if this is something that is there specifically just in the anime, or if it was something that they added, or that it was just like off of something that they mentioned in the manga, where when they mention Otohime to Neptune when he's, his much younger self before they're married and everything, when she's just like this political activist, that they mention her, and Neptune kind of blushes, and the guards are kind of just like, oh yeah, he likes her, type of a thing. And I don't know if that was just something that they added in the anime just because it's cute, and it does just like imply that there was, even before they were fully, together, that he at least had an initial attraction to her. I'm not sure. But we see some of that, and then eventually through unknown events, Neptune and Otohime end up getting married. And then throughout the course of time, they have their 3 sons. They have Fukaboshi, Ryuboshi, and Momboshi. And then, 16 years ago, they had Shirahoshi. So there was definitely an attraction there. And my thought is that the way that this may have, worked out, and I think I may have gone over this a bit more in the episode where I talked about Neptune and Otohime, where I talked about them for like my couples video, couples series that I did. But one of the things is, what I kind of think happened is that maybe Otohime had made her way, had got enough political following that she wanted to go to the king, and he's like, fine, we'll have a meeting. And then just like throughout the course of the meeting, or the various meetings that they would have had discussing all of this stuff, and her political points of view and everything like that, that this attraction just kind of developed between the two of them. And it just eventually resulted in him like asking her out on a date, and then eventually it just resulted in now they're married, for whatever reason, however that ended up working out. So we see we kind of get some of that there. And then when we do see them during the Fishman Island flashback, when, Jinbei is telling the story of, the pirate and the queen, of, Fisher Tiger and Queen Otohime, these two opposing figures, but who don't necessarily think the other one is entirely wrong. And I talked about this a little bit in Neptune's video, where, Otohime is kind of this representation of like the pacifist side of things, of like wanting to do things through action but not violent action. And then Fisher Tiger is kind of the one that is much more of like, he goes and raids Marijois, and he forms the Sun Pirates and everything like that. And like has all of that set up there. And I did make the comparison that like Otohime, in regards to like American civil rights figures, is very similar to Martin Luther King Jr., whereas Fisher Tiger is very similar to Malcolm X in these regards. Now, that does not mean that they are the exact same as both of them. They are just kind of like these similar figures in the way that they tend to handle things. Martin Luther King Jr. was very much pacifist and very much wanting, with all of his speeches and his sermons and everything like that, with wanting to promote peace and equality, but understanding that sometimes you have to have a little bit of civil unrest, with the bus boycotts and stuff like that. Whereas Malcolm X, was much more of forceful type stuff. I am not as well versed in Malcolm X, so if I don't have all of those details exactly correct, I apologize. I did several book reports and history reports on like Martin Luther King Jr. When I was in school, but I didn't really do that much on Malcolm X. But there's similarities there that can be drawn between Otohime and Martin Luther King Jr. and Fisher Tiger and Malcolm X. But the way we were introduced to Otohime is, of course, she's out there giving these speeches about, wanting to, find a way to get, to move, Fishman Island up to the surface, to have the people be okay with this, to have all of her citizens be okay with this and not force it upon them, and such. So we get this stuff. And many of those fishmen and the merfolk are just like, it's just easier for us to just stay down here and remain separate from the humans. It's less dangerous if we do it that way. Fewer of us are going to be captured and turned into slaves and stuff like that, because it's not like Otohime is ignorant as to, like, the fact that there are fishmen that get turned into slaves and stuff like that by the world government. She is not ignorant of that fact at all. And she despises the fact that that happens, and such. But what ends up happening, and what ends up one of the things that happens is we get this kind of demonstration of, it's kind of demonstrated how high she has this level of like observation hockey that is very finely tuned to emotions. Because at one point while she's giving a speech, there's like this thief that comes charging past, and she actually ends up like grabbing him, subduing him, and then like slapping him, and she like sprains her hand in the process, and then she's like, she like apologizes to him for the fact that she slaps him, but then she just like, via her, her words, she's able to convince him to stop being a thief and to turn his life around and then turn over a new leaf and everything like that. And like we just get like this fun interaction, not fun, but like an interesting version of an interaction there, where it's just like, she just is so compassionate for her people and stuff like that, and wanting what's best for them and wanting to give all of them the best chance, that comes through with that is kind of like, she doesn't have conqueror's hockey. She's never stated to have conqueror's hockey. I don't think any of the Neptune family is stated to have conqueror's hockey, because I don't think Neptune has it. If any of them would, it would be him. I mean, sure, Hoshi has, the power of Poseidon, but that's different. That's not conqueror's hockey. That's just the ability to communicate with the Sea Kings, which is a different type of a power. But Otohime has this very high-spec observation hockey that is designed, or that is very much in tune with her emotions, and has very much kind of made her an empath in that regard. And we never see her fight. We see her, she slapped the thief, and she's got like a sprained wrist, and then we see her like still out there, doing her demonstrations with a sprained wrist and everything like that. But the thing is that, yes, she's using her power as the queen to get it that people know who she is, but she's not using her power as the queen to like force stuff upon people, to like force her opinions on people. She's just out there doing her demonstrations and giving people the chance to hear her, and then letting them make the choice on their own if they wish to support her. Eventually there does end up being, she interacts with lots of kids and everything like that, and they all kind of like adore her and everything like that. She's met with very warm greetings by the children and everything like that. But one of the things that happens is that, of course, when Fisher Tiger returns, he ends up going to the royal palace and having a meeting with Otohime and Neptune. And during this time frame, he explains to them, basically, they become the only other two people who end up knowing about what he went through at Marie-Joie, where he tells them that for the past however many years that he's been gone, he was actually in Marie-Joie as a slave. And he's like, and I intend to go back there. I am going to climb the red line, and I am going to rampage through Marie-Joie and free as many slaves as I can. And, and the thing is that, Neptune doesn't try to stop him, and Otohime does not try to stop Fisher Tiger. And the other thing is that, and also this is a comparison to Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X, is that they were contemporaries of each other. They'd met each other before. They knew each other before. and they understood the value of what each other brings to the table in this regard. And Otohime is not going to try to make herself, is not going to try to force Fisher Tiger to not go and do this. She understands what he suffered at Marie Joie. And she, via her kind of, empathic abilities and everything like that, she says to Neptune that, like, the cry that she heard from his heart was a battle cry. And of course, when Fisher Tiger climbs the red line, rampages through Marie Joie and everything like that, Neptune and Otohime can't really, approve of what he did, but they don't really denounce him either and everything like that. And he forms the Sun Pirates and everything like that with Jinbei and Orlong and, all the other ones and everything like that. But the thing is that, yeah, Neptune and Otohime are the only two up until Fisher Tiger dies that know what he went through, because he told them. Because he wanted them to understand why he was going to go to Marie Joie and do what he did. And the thing is that after Fisher Tiger's death, Otohime becomes even more determined than ever to try to make her dream a reality, because she wants to try to make it that, like, the children of Fishman Island can grow up and know what it's like to be seen as equals to humans, and to know that humans are not bad, that they're not all bad. Yes, there's bad humans, but there's also bad fishmen. Bad fishmen and merfolk and everything like that. We see that when it comes to Arlong and Hordy and all of the other, new fishmen, pirates and everything like that. For how they're, for how they act and everything like that. And, there's good humans, bad humans, good marines, good pirates, bad pirates. That's one of the other things about the story, is that Oda is just like, not every single one of these things is a monolith. Not every single person, within an organization is the same as all the other ones. There's, moral spectrums of, what's good and what's bad, and, why people have certain power and stuff like that throughout the course of the entire story. Even with the Celestial Dragons, the majority of them are bad from what we've seen, but we've seen some good ones as well when it comes to Homing and his wife and Roshinante, and then, Milzigard when he gets, turned around, which I'll be getting to in a moment. And all of that stuff, and how, how they change and how they get better. Shanks is technically an example of a good Celestial Dragon, given what we learned about Bonnie, within the last couple of chapters. She is technically a Celestial Dragon and everything like that. So there's a lot of that there. But yeah, so Otohime, becomes even more determined by Fisher Tiger's death in order to try to, keep going and try to achieve her dream, while not denying what happened to him and everything like that. She doesn't think that what he wanted was any less important. She doesn't blame him for the fact that he said he could never care for humans and everything like that. Although I think she would have been very proud for how he handled being around Koala and everything like that. That would have been a very interesting meeting if Otohime ever got to meet Koala. That would have been a very interesting meeting there. Because they both have these very interesting relations with Fisher Tiger in that regard. I still want to see, a side note, and has not much to do with this, but I still want to see Koala and Jinbei interact again. And Hachan interact again, because, like, those two would remember who she was, or she would remember them and then reintroduce herself, and they'd be like, oh my god, you grew up and you got so strong and everything like that. I want to see that happen at some point in time. Straw Hat reunion videos. But eventually what ends up happening is, of course, she gets to the point where she starts asking for signatures to try to, show who will support, trying to move the population up from Fishman Island up to the surface and everything. And after 5 years, she manages to get only about 1,000 signatures. However, people begin to withdraw their signatures and stuff like that, and she just gets very depressed by this, and one day she just gets very, very, very drunk and gives this heart-wrenching speech over the giant intercom system, the broadcast radio that goes throughout all of Fishman Island and stuff like that we see used during the arc later on, for different broadcasts and stuff like that she gives this while she's, like, sitting there with all of these bottles of, like, liquor around her, and she's just very drunk, but very, very, like, are all of you idiots? Why is it so hard for you to understand the way that the world is supposed to work? We are supposed to work hard, and it's so You know, she basically says what she's been wanting to say for a long time, and she's just like, why is it so hard for all of you to understand that I just want to help it, that we can live in the sun, that we deserve to live in the sun, and everything. And, you know, she gives this very impassioned speech while she's drunk. And then they eventually manage to get the intercom mic away from her, and she they get her away, and they're able to get her sobered up and everything like that. But that kind of ends up being a bit of a spark as to, like, something that ends up helping that, because she, like, gave her unfettered opinion as to what she really wanted to say and everything like that. And eventually what ends up happening is, of course, once Jinbei becomes a warlord, all the fishmen slaves are released and such, and then that's when Milzigard, finds his way down to, Fishman Island, because he wants to get his slaves back. And he finds his way down there, and he ends up getting attacked by his former slaves. They almost shoot him. Otohime ends up getting in between them and protects him and everything, and gets shot in the process. Shot in the arm in the process, or grazed on the arm in the process. And she ends up, like, talking down the slaves. She also ends up having, Milzigard has her at, gunpoint. And stuff. Well, he kind of uses her as a hostage, but that's when, the Sea Kings show up, because Otohime is like, oh no, mommy is in trouble, and the Sea Kings show up. And that just makes Milzigard just, like, drop the gun, and I think he faints. And everything, and, like, eventually he's able to, they're able to, nurse him back to health to the point where he's fine. And he ends up agreeing to take Otohime to the surface as, like, her escort, and take her to Marie Joie, and she can explain her want to the Gorosei. I don't think it landed in the time of a reverie. I don't think it landed during that time frame, but she travels up with him, and when she returns, well, before she goes, she ends up having a conversation with her sons about Otohime, because she points out the fact that, like, your sister has a power, because she figured out that, the Sea King showed up when Shirahoshi cried, and that means that she has the power of Poseidon. And so she talks to her sons, and she's, like, having giving this explanation of, like, your sister has this power, and it is your job as her brothers to keep her safe. And they're like, of course, Mom. And, so they make that promise. And, like, throughout the course of this whole flashback, we see stuff where it's, like, her interacting with her children. And again, I will state this, I don't get the size difference between Otohime and Neptune, and between Otohime and Shirahoshi. I'm just like, I hope they breed by eggs, but I have no idea, because this is just weird. And just I don't understand the size comparisons here. It doesn't add up. They're two different in size. It's like Zoro having Enma, and it's like Enma was huge compared to Odin, and it's normal size compared to, Zoro, and it's just like, that shouldn't be the way that works. And all that, but, it's One Piece, it's Oda, he'll write what he wants. And everything. But what ends up happening is, of course, Otohime goes up to the surface with Milzigard, and when she returns, she has when she returns several weeks later, she has, this paper that is this negotiation with the world government that she refers to as the Hope of Fishman Island. And it's from that day on, she has this campaign that she begins where she is, if she can return with enough support from her people, she can return to the world nobles and say, hey, I have this, this many signatures that say, yes, the people of Fishman Island want to try to move Fishman Island to the surface, or want to try to move, our people to the surface and everything like that. And she has, permission from the world government to do that to a degree. So she's trying to get all of those signatures and everything to show that she has enough support from the people. Because if enough of the people don't want to leave, she's not going to make them leave. Not going to make them leave their home. And eventually she ends up having, she's very, very happy about this, and she, they keep, gathering more and more signatures, keep coming in and everything like that. And, she makes, her boys promise to, of course, protect Shirahoshi and everything like that. And eventually, when they're in the giant plaza, they've collected so many signatures, and suddenly the signature box is caught on fire, and Shirahoshi or Otohime is rushing to try to save as many of the signatures as possible, but she ends up getting shot. And all of her children are around her when this happens, and to prevent Shirahoshi from crying and having this horrible emotional reaction and causing the Sea Kings to attack, the three boys end up having to. It's so sad. The three boys, they just watched their mother die, and now they have to try to, prevent their sister from having, an emotional breakdown, which she is very, very within her rights to have. In complete and utter honesty, she is within her rights to have a complete and utter emotional breakdown. So are the boys, given what they just saw. So none of that is their fault. And so Fukaboshi and Momboshi are trying to be funny to try to help her, laugh and everything and be slightly distracted. And Fukaboshi is the one that kind of, is kind of the one that says goodbye to her and everything like that. And, the five of them kind of made this promise to keep going and to keep, keep their mother's, dream alive and everything like that. And of course, Horty set it up and made it look like it was a human that assassinated her when it really wasn't, when it was him. And then of course we have Otohime's funeral, where just looks like the whole kingdom shows up to the funeral and everything. And, the king is there. They don't have any of the children there because during this time frame, I think they figured out that Otohime, or that Shirahoshi got marked by Vanderdecken. So, she stays at the palace. But as I mentioned in Neptune's video, we do have his reaction to what happened to Otohime being assassinated. And he just is distraught. His crown is off on the ground, and he just has, blood coming down his forehead from where he probably banged his head against the wall a bunch of times in his grief, and everything, and how he's just he's a broken man at that point in time. He lost the woman that he loved and had been his wife for so many years at that point in time, and he had a lot of respect and admiration for and everything like that, and all of that. And and I went over that in his video a lot. And, Jinbei is at the funeral, and a bunch of the, Sun Pirates are at the funeral and everything like that. I think if Fisher Tiger had still been alive, he probably would have tried to find a way to go to the funeral as well. Because he did have respect for Otohime. While they did not see eye to eye, they did respect each other. And everything. And even after Otohime's death, her ideals were carried on through Jinbei and everything like that, with him becoming a member of the Seven Warlords in hopes that it would be able to help with, fixing some of the relations between humans and fishmen and everything. And, her, she has a memorial within the Sea Forest and everything and all of that stuff. Unfortunately, for the after her death, between her death and when, the Straw Hats arrive at Fishman Island, there is kind of this lull in them being able to get support for wanting to move the people to, of Fishman Island to the surface. The princes and Shirahoshi at the funeral make a speech that they intend to still work as hard as they can to carry on their mother's dream, and they do, and eventually it does pay off. And of course, post-mortem, when, when everything is happening during Fishman Island, and Horty and the new Fishman pirates are gathering up, all of the different citizens of Fishman Island in order to make them, show, disrespect, they have them step on a picture of Queen Otohime. And so many of them do not want to do this, because even if they didn't necessarily 100% agree with her, they still had respect for her, and she was still their queen, and you can see that they do not want to do this, and everything. And eventually it does end up, the rebirth of hope comes in the fact that, when the Straw Hats show up and they're able to, defeat Horty and everything like that, and Vanderdecken, that Shirahoshi is now able to leave her tower safely and everything, and that it was revealed that it wasn't a human that assassinated the queen, that it was Horty and everything like that. And, so it kind of helps with Fishman Island being able to heal and all of that. And Neptune and the boys and Shirahoshi are finally able to get to the point where they can not move on, but they can work on what they can to try to help to keep Otohime's dream alive, to keep her legacy going and everything. And of course, her legacy continued on in the fact that her children have now all managed to go to Marie-Joie, and Neptune was a part of the reverie and everything, and that it was... they were granted permission to try to start moving Fishman Island to the surface. Admittedly, yes, there's everything that happened with Shirahoshi and Charlos and everything like that, and how Neptune does not want to deal with that again, which is perfectly understandable and everything. And it will be very interesting to see how kind of like her legacy of wanting them to live in the sun and everything gets brought to fruition with, with having Luffy being that connection there, and him being the new, having the sun god Nika fruit and everything like that, and the representation of the sun in that regard. And of course, with Wano, you're the moon, unaware of the dawn and everything like that. Connections can be made there between Otohime and, Toki's prophecy and everything like that. So a lot of that stuff can be connected back. There's a lot of stuff in One Piece for, the representations of, like, the sun and everything like that, and she's kind of, a goldfish. She's a goldfish mermaid, and one of the things that if I'm remembering correctly, that when it comes to goldfish, is that they do need the sun in order to have their color, or they need to have light to a degree in order to have their color, and then if you put a goldfish in like a dark room where there is no light at all for a long enough period of time, they will turn white. Now, I never tried this. I've heard about this. I don't know if that's 100% true, but I've heard about it, and if I'm wrong, and I apologize. One of those, urban legends and stuff like that. It's not like I'm going to buy a goldfish, and then stick it in the closet with no light for, a long period of time. I'd still feed it and everything, but it's like, I'm not going to test that theory myself. I did have a goldfish. I won it at the fair, and then my sister took care of it for a while until Mom and I got an aquarium, and it did eventually die, but it lived for a good amount of time. And all of that. But, from the dead fish to the dead queen. Otohime's legacy is being carried on with her daughter and with her sons and everything like that. And, it lives on with, with Jinbei in that regard and everything, and how, she still, they want to move Fishman Island to the surface. They want to have this relation and connection and safety and equality with the people of, the surface and everything like that, with all the humans and all the other races that are on the surface and everything, with, everything that's represented there. And I mean, as much as people rail against Totland for very valid reasons in regards to, like, the soul tax and everything like that, there are moments in Whole Cake that show, the different races all working together and living together in peace. They just have to find a way to try to get that to transmit to the entire world with less Psycho Queen in charge. I mean, the homies are an interesting idea too, but moving on from that. The next video for this series will be about Fukaboshi, Ryuboshi, and Momboshi for the 3 princes. I will do all of them in one video, and then I will have the separate video about Shirahoshi. And I believe that should be all that I have for the moment. I thank you very much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye.